1460 WVOX.
Now, live from Whitney Media, 1460 WVOX, the Greenburgh Report, with Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner. You can join in the conversation at 914-636-0110. Now on 1460 WVOX, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Morning, Westchester. I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and today we have a really interesting program. My co-host is Pauline Mosley, and Pauline, could you introduce our guests?
Yes, good morning, everyone. Today we have with us in the studio, we have Mr. Michael Lachman Singh, Manager of Information, and Mr. Jonathan Segi, who's Director of Data Analytics. And we also have with us on phone Dean Hill, who is Dean of the Seidenberg School of Computer Science and Information Systems. And today we'll be talking about Pace University and White Plains Hospital's collaboration and new partnerships moving forward.
Yeah, I was sort of interested in the relationship between Pace and White Plains Hospital. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So, hi everyone. My name is Michael Lachman Singh. I'm the implementation manager for the innovation group at White Plains Hospital, as well as for a little side organization called East Post Road Ventures. I'm just going to jump into that, the history of that, why that is, how it came to be formed, and its purpose, and then Pauline and I can talk about how this amazing opportunity between PACE and WPH sort of came about through. So for anyone who doesn't know, White Plains Hospital is a hospital, community hospital in White Plains, New York, around 300 beds, has been a part of the community for a very long time. In the last, I would say, 10 years or so, healthcare organizations have realized that when it comes to research and the development of new technologies, they were really missing out on the upside potential of the new innovations, whether it's devices, software, AI, that they were helping to create. They were being paid a fee by these outside companies to sort of use their facilities as a test bed, but they were losing the opportunity for the upside potential to co-own a piece of that new company that spins out of it. So what, NYU Ventures, Northwell Ventures, Mount Sinai Ventures, and WPH, East Post Road Ventures was spun out to create was to capture that upside potential to help the for-profit arm of White Plains Hospital to co-own a piece of what we help to develop within our four walls. So that's a very quick rundown of what East Post Road Ventures is. If anyone has any more interest in learning more, we have a website that shows our portfolio companies and the 10 companies that we've invested in. All 10 companies help the organization help White Plains Hospital solve a problem that it has, whether it's something sort of back end like revenue cycle management or front end like, and that's more interesting to me, but remote patient monitoring. I think we're one of the few probably community hospitals in this area that has a really robust remote patient monitoring service, and happy to jump into that later. So how does
that work? The remote patient.
Oh, sure. So one of our investment companies in our portfolio is a little, not so little company called Life 365, and it is a device agnostic platform that allows for White Plains Hospital clinicians to monitor patients with specific chronic conditions, but from the convenience, safety, comfort of their own home. So if you, God forbid, have an acute event because you have, let's say, congestive heart failure, and you went a little too crazy around St. Patrick's Day, a little too much soda bread, a little too much salt, had to be admitted. After a couple days of admission, the clinicians right the ship. They determine that based on your age, underlying diagnosis, other criteria, that you'd be a good qualifier for this program. What happens is, obviously, you have to consent to being part of it, but you would go home and then be greeted by our community paracare partner, which is a community ambulance services called Empress, stationed in Yonkers, New York. And they would come to your home and set up a little Stel Hub, a Wi-Fi device that just plugs into your outlet. You get a weight scale, a blood pressure cuff, a pulse oximeter, all provided to you by the hospital. And then essentially, we just ask that you take those vital signs once a day and for a predetermined amount of time, usually for 30 days, just to make sure that you're, the term is called transitions of care, when you're transitioning from the inpatient side to the outpatient side, that someone's keeping an eye on you. So it's like, Paul's blood pressure is getting a little high. Let me give him a call.
Mm-hmm.
Did you eat something rich? Did you walk around enough today? Did you hydrate sufficiently today? So they'll actively monitor your vital signs to make sure that you're not coming back to the hospital just 3 days after you were discharged. But EPRV is sort of the vehicle that allows the organization to invest in those really cutting-edge companies that are providing those really cutting-edge services.
It's really like hospitals in your home.
Yes, to an extent, yes.
That is really great. Pauline?
So, Jonathan, do you want to introduce yourself? Jonathan Segi?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here. John Segi, the Director of Data Management and Analytics at White Plains Hospital. So my role is a little bit different from Michael. We're sort of focused on inside the hospital, as well as, the sort of the full context of somebody's care. How can we sort of take the information that we're gathering via all these new electronic systems and use that to improve the experience that patients have, improve the quality of care, look for opportunities to do better, sort of harness all of this new data that we're getting streaming from all these different sources, develop new sort of analytics processes, methods, things like developing our own internal machine learning algorithms, and so forth. Building off of what Michael was just saying, and what you were saying too, Paul, I mean, care has sort of moved from a hospital, meaning a building, to sort of a continuum of care, meaning, okay, sometimes you're within the hospital walls, sometimes you're within your own four walls, and, again, with the consent and sort of like knowing what you're getting into, having care be able to reach across all of those different domains is really going to help, I think, sort of tie things together for folks.
And it's sort of like interesting because when somebody's much older, changing a hospital environment really creates deterioration. So if somebody's able to get the care in their own home and somebody's able to monitor them, they're going to do much, much better.
They're going to be happier and stay in the home longer. Yeah, absolutely. That's the goal.
That's great. We have to take a break and we'll be right back. This is a interesting program, and I'd like to thank Pauline for setting this up.
Absolutely.
This is really fascinating. Thanks a lot. We'll be back in 5 minutes. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner. I'm the Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
And I'm Pauline Mosley, your co-host. We're so happy you've joined us this morning. With us on the line is Dean Hill, Dean of the Seidenberg School of Computer Science and Information Systems at Pace University. And Dean Hill, can you please introduce yourself, please? We're so happy you've joined us today.
With pleasure, Dr. Mosley, and it is an honor to be with such esteemed company. My name is Jonathan Hill. I have the honor and privilege of serving as Dean of the Seidenberg School of Computer Science and Information at Pace University. And we are celebrating our 40th year as an independent school of computing within Pace University, and that makes us, depending on who you ask, the second or third oldest dedicated school of computing in the country.
That's amazing. So could you tell us a little bit about the student internship program?
Well, this is something that Pauline and Michael cooked up in their own laboratory. They are very entrepreneurial folks who I believe have at heart a belief in providing opportunity for students and understanding that students don't just walk out off the stage at graduation and into White Plains Hospital or another prestigious research hospital and start at their jobs, that they need to be developed and that they need opportunities where they can take the things they learn in the classroom and apply them and really learn the skills that go along with the theory that they're learning in class.
Do student interns land up having a better shot at getting jobs after they graduate?
Yeah, the literature and the science clearly shows that students who go into the workplace and really have that opportunity to get experience have a huge advantage over students who don't take those internship opportunities. And we are really, really grateful to our colleagues at White Plains Hospital and to all of the employers in the Westchester County area and the Hudson Valley who create opportunities for our students and help pay it forward by giving the up-and-coming generation an opportunity to learn what it means to come in and work for a company and be a professional data scientist or computer programmer or UX, UI, human-computer interface specialist.
It seems to me that this is a field that really could result in a great career. There's a lot of jobs that are available.
I mean,
well, there are, and it's really, really exciting. Healthcare is going through this revolution that Michael and Jonathan just referred to, and a good university faculty member, and there is none better than Dr. Pauline Mosley, understands that they need to be on top of these changes and advances. And many, many of our students aspire to work in healthcare as individual healthcare is revolutionized and we come into this era of personalized medicine. Computing is at the forefront of that, and a well-educated computer scientist or information technology student is going to have fantastic opportunities to apply their degree and their education in the healthcare industry.
I mean, I would even make the point that behind the scenes, most health systems and even community hospitals, more and more are becoming tech companies under the hood. I mean, more and more is digitized. All of our medical records are electronic or becoming electronic. And so if you're not providing direct care, you're not a doctor, nurse, PA, somebody in the clinical space, you are essentially more and more doing a technical job. And there's a lot of need for up-and-coming talent, people with the skills to step in and apply real computer science, data science abilities within the healthcare space. And it's just going to be more and more that way, I think, going into the future.
Yeah, I wanted to tie that into a fascinating and kind of powerful real-world example. So more and more of health care, if it's not deferring to clinical judgment, like Segi just said, really is going to move into that AI space. And it's why we need data scientists like Jonathan and his team and interns that come out of this program. Not only White Plains Hospital, but all hospitals, because here's a perfect example of why you need a data scientist, something that I think hospitals would have not even considered as recently as 10 years ago. Imagine you're walking into the ED post MVA, so a minor motor vehicle accident, your head's ringing, your heart's racing because of what just happened. You walk in, you're assessed, you say hi to the triage nurse, they do a quick assessment on you, sit you down in wherever spot that's available, frankly, because it's the emergency department, and then your physician goes ahead and orders a head CT, a cardiac EKG, a battery of labs, and also physically assesses you. No one knows, not one provider in this country knows exactly at what time those tests are going to come back, what the results are going to be, what other more seriously injured people are going to come in after you, what other more seriously injured people come in before you. But what if, running in the background, it was an AI algorithm that says, hey, when Dr. Feiner evaluates a patient of this type, he often says, if the EKG says this, or if the labs come back as that, or if the heart rate is this, I tend to admit this patient. But you may not be able to come back to look at the medical record for that particular patient because 6 other people just walked in the door for half an hour. So what if something was running in the background that already queued up an order to secure a bed upstairs for you, to secure a secondary study for whatever underlying condition you might have, to secure the resources needed, or to order the medications that you might need once you're upstairs? Because that 30 or 40 minutes may not seem like a big deal, but multiply that by the 72,000 ED visits that White Plains Hospital had last year. Not only are you saving a ton of clinician time, you're also getting people to care and to treatment quicker. And, somewhat self-servingly on the back end, you're lowering your length of stay for each patient that comes in through the door. So healthcare, frankly, needs AI. It can't continue to be, I think it's 13% of GDP for this country forever. It's just not sustainable.
And also, when people go to the emergency room, they could be waiting for hours. So right now, as a result of what you're doing, it could make the whole emergency room experience less stressful. People will feel that they're getting the treatment earlier, because I think, one of the problems is if you're in an emergency room and you with a loved one and you're waiting and waiting and waiting and you don't, and the person hasn't even been seen, that's really aggravating. So this whole process is going to, really is going to be so much more efficient, much more pleasant. I know even my mother's 98 years old, and she about a month ago she had COVID. So we called Ossining ambulance, and they arranged for White Plains Hospital to send somebody over to her house, and basically they treated her in her house. They even had somebody do an X-ray at the house, so she didn't even have to leave. Now, normally, she would have had to go into the emergency room, she would have had to go in the hospital, and her condition would have deteriorated, just the change in location. So this was really like, and it was so efficient. It was, they came in every day, they saw her until, she got over it, but it was, it was really amazing. And the only thing that I was surprised about is that most, I hadn't heard about it. And I think a lot of people are not aware of all this.
Absolutely. I just want to give a quick shout out because the physician who runs that program, Dr. Farouk Jaffrey, is the medical director of WPH Cares, and he sort of manages our relationships with the various community paramedics out in the Westchester space that run exactly those services because, I'm not as old as you two are, but I'll say this, that funny enough, healthcare is kind of coming full circle where it actually makes more sense to make house calls again. Except you're not sending your doctor, you're sending your community trained paramedic, you're sending your nurse, you're sending maybe even an NP or PA, and they're starting the IV line or they're doing the assessment, as you said with your mom, at home and making that determination. Well, they're just going to get IV antibiotics. Why would they go into a hospital and risk potentially exposure to something else? The stress of changing their environment. It's to me, it's almost funny that it's kind of coming full circle within my lifetime.
Yeah, and does a hospital bill the same rate if somebody's getting treated at home or in the hospital?
So I can only speak in generalities, but nationally, healthcare is moving. I alluded to before that historically, within this country, healthcare is some astronomical proportion of GDP, almost 20%. That number it has to go down. And to encourage that number to go down, we're moving nationally from what's known as a fee-for-service model, which is just doctors bill for whatever service they claim they gave, to what's known a value-based care model. So the roundabout answer to your question, Paul, is just that the way the accounting of services is shifting from an individual to the aggregate, which is encouraging us to be more mindful of the resources spent and how we assign those resources, which is in turn encouraging these more community-based initiatives. It's shifting to, as Segi said, it's shifting from hospital-based care to managing health, not treating conditions, not just performing procedures, but managing health at your home.
We have to take another break, and then we'll be right back. This is so interesting.
Very interesting. So please join us right after the break, and we'll learn more about data analytics and how this is integrating into healthcare today. Thank you.
Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, and this is such an interesting program. I'm learning a lot. Actually, why I like this being on WVOX is I learn more from this show than from being town supervisor. And I want to thank Pauline Mosley for setting this up. We were during the break talking about how hospitals were changing and data analytics and why it's important. Could you just tell us again a little bit about the whole profession?
Certainly, yeah. So, there are many different sort of facets to probably what falls under data analysis, data analytics. The way that I like to think about it is trying to get computers to answer our questions for us. We all, obviously in any profession, you have sort of a host of problems before you that you've been tasked to solve. And I think historically we sort of have used computers, calculators, whatever, to sort of pull out aggregate figures, give some more information and context to a human to sort of make a decision or decide what's going on, what's important. More and more we're moving to a space where we're giving computers all of the raw data and saying, hey, can you help us? Can you answer this question for us? What do you think is important, right? So this whole sort of data science, machine learning, AI sort of development that's happening is moving away from provide support for humans to make their own judgment towards let's let the machine make a judgment, decide what's important, build a model, and then we as humans interpret that, decide if we agree, maybe tune it up. But I think that's sort of where we are in the analytics profession now, is more and more feeding this raw data in, sort of developing models, developing algorithms, and seeing if we can have the machine give us back the answer.
I was going to ask Dean Hill a question. If does somebody to get into your program, do you have to be like brilliant? Because there's some people like myself. I have trouble changing my wristwatch during daylight savings time. So I'm wondering, does it take a special type of student to go into this field?
Paul, it sounds like you have great potential. So talk to Dr. Mosley. We'll get you into a class and let you fulfill that potential. But brilliance is a wonderful thing when you encounter it. And indeed, particularly with mathematics and computational sciences, we do get these preternaturally gifted people who just get it, and they are a joy to work with. But it's an even bigger joy to work with people who are willing to put in the time and the effort to work for it. All of this can be taught, and it can all be learned. And there are folks for whom it comes naturally, but most of us have to really work at it. If it wasn't possible to teach it, we couldn't possibly fulfill the demand from all the hospitals and the banks and the government agencies and the digital media companies and all of the data science, data analytics positions that need to be filled, all of the cybersecurity positions that need to be filled. And that's why PACE and other universities are working so hard to develop the workforce and to develop young people and give them the skill sets necessary to be really good at data analytics, just for example.
And one of the things I like about PACE, which I've always been an admirer of PACE, is I have found that more students who graduate PACE end up getting jobs when they graduate than in many other colleges. I've observed this, and I said, it's really amazing. You train people, they have the internships, they get the experience, and then if they're good, they get the jobs.
And that is our claim to fame. Someone enrolls at PACE, because they want a great education, but they want to be developed for the professions as well. So whether they are a data scientist or a dancer or a singer or a writer or a pre-medical student, we are going to prepare them for their profession as well as give them a great arts and sciences education.
And that's really such a great, something that's really great for a student to recognize when they're applying to colleges. What are their chances are of getting a job when they graduate?
Well, and I think programs like the internship that we're doing together are really important because, there is a lot of skill that you need to learn to be a data scientist or within the analytics space. You need to learn how to code and all that, but there are some things that you need to learn by doing a job, right? I mean, so it's not enough to just know how to write Python. You need to know, why does this problem matter? Why are we trying to solve this? What is the trade-off between getting the answer right and getting the answer wrong? And how do we tune it? These are all things that you sort of only learn by experience and by being close to the problem. And so I think these sorts of internships are a huge leg up. And then subsequently, when you're looking for a job, you see on the resume, oh, this person actually worked in a real place, on an internship. You're way more likely to say, okay, I trust this person, will know how to ask the right questions, in addition to having the skill to do the job.
And also, I guess, the question I have is, do you think the high schools are preparing students for to be able to handle data analytics? I mean, when people graduate school, now it's totally different because the students grew up with computers. They grew up with technology. So is this sort of second nature for most students, or is it still tough?
Well, yes and but. The pandemic did real damage in the laudable work that high schools around the world, and particularly here in our area, Westchester, Rockland, Fairfield, Hudson Valley. The pandemic meant that these teachers were kind of working blind and trying to teach to students on a distance basis, and that's not an easy thing to do. It takes real expertise to be able to do that well. And so we are finding that the high school students that have come in the last couple of years have suffered learning loss. And that puts the responsibility on Dr. Mosley and the other faculty to kind of remediate and tutor and spend extra time to bring them up to speed early in a semester so that they can actually do the things they're being asked to do in class. And again, there is amazing work being done in the K-12 schools all around our area, and we at PACE certainly work very hard to support those efforts. And we benefit when they are successful and we have great and talented students ready to move forward quickly. But one of the requirements for being in higher education today is finding ways to supplement what students are coming in with and give them the remediation and tutoring assistance that they may need to get up to speed quickly so they can be successful in class.
Jonathan, and Michael, would you be able to tell us a little bit about yourselves and tell us what made you go into this field?
Yeah, sure. So I think you'll find if you interview 30 data scientists, we all came from different educational backgrounds, but I was originally, my education was in environmental science and environmental engineering, which is a field that is sort of uses a lot of data, but it's not a computer science degree, it's not a data science degree. But I found myself sort of using computers to answer questions about groundwater flow, and that made me realize that I cared more about the computers than the groundwater in terms of the actual work. I mean, I love groundwater, but for me it was very fun and interesting to do the sort of computer and coding side of things. That sort of shifted me into the data science space, and for me, healthcare analytics, it is a very dynamic, interesting, fun place to be. And so I sort of found my way into healthcare, and that's where I've landed and ended up.
And hopefully stay.
And
Hopefully I can
stay.
keep you. No, it's a pleasure working with Segi, and I love when our work crosses over. So kind of to Segi's point and Dean Hill's earlier point, as important as having that underlying technical knowledge is, I think if you're going to succeed in innovation and even in data analysis, as a more global definition, it really helps to have a curious mind and a curious nature. And that's probably the quickest way I could describe myself. I started out my career actually at SUNY Binghamton, getting my nursing degree, worked briefly down in Washington, D.C. as a clinical nurse, came back to the tri-state area. I can't believe I'm saying this, but during the last recession, and now we're in our next. But anyway, went back to grad school, got my law degree at Albany Law, my MBA at Union. Essentially just, I don't want to say boredom, but persistent curiosity is a big motivator. And so after a good, now I've been in healthcare for 15 years, but I've never been in the same sort of workflow for more than 5, let's say. And now most recently landed in innovation, and I absolutely love it.
Oh, that's great. We have to take a break, and we'll be right back. And we're talking about data analytics and the PACE internship program with White Plains Hospital and the importance of technology in medicine.
Absolutely.
And something that people really don't think about. It's a hospital in your own house. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.
WVOX. Now back to the Greenburgh Report on 1460 WVOX. Once again, here's Greenburgh Town Supervisor Paul Feiner.
Hi, I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor, and we have Pauline. You set up this program, and it's one of the more interesting programs we have. We're talking about computers, robots, data analytics, and the future of hospital stays, which is going to be totally different than the hospital stays of 2020 or 2000. Now it's going to be more efficient. The use of computers and programs and chat. And the question I have is, are you concerned about privacy? Is there a privacy issue?
Absolutely. I mean, privacy is sort of it's the four walls that we're in all the time, especially in the data space. I mean, it's a blessing, I think, in the end, because it sort of forces us to focus on what's important and not sort of overuse what we have. It also means that we're not going to be the first ones to use some new technology, because oftentimes that means sending data to some ChatGPT, OpenAI, whatever, all this, if you've heard about that in the news, like, we will not be using that anytime, the foreseeable future for patient information, because we're just not going to send it outside of our firewalls. So privacy it forces us to sort of think of our own solutions, try to develop things in-house where we can, or really, really obviously work with vetted partners, and take security seriously. So yeah, it's the air we breathe.
And doctors and nurses, they're going to have more skills that the doctors and nurses of the last century did not have.
Well, so I would respectfully challenge that a little bit, in just saying that, yes, they'll be interacting with an electronic medical record, which in my opinion absolutely has more value than paper, because you can open up your smartphone right now, depending on who your healthcare provider is, but more likely than not, they run on one of the big 3 players, Epic, Cerner, Meditech, and then that communicates and transfers data into a little program called MyChart, and you can ask for prescription refills. You can do all sorts of things that if people were still on paper, providers were still on paper, we couldn't do today. So that is a new skill that we are asking clinicians for. But in my opinion, the end goal is actually to remove and sort of put in the background absolutely everything that isn't the clinical work. So forget about a nurse not just spending time with his or her, 6 patients upstairs or however many patients in the ED because they have to go run to the pharmacy to get this IV bag of IV antibiotics because it's just an emergency and it has to be done. Why the heck can't the nurse press a button and a robot delivers that? Why can't the physician press a button and a robot, I don't know, mixes it, creates it? Take it one step further. What if we know that as soon as they walk in the door, based on their temperature, their heart rate, their blood pressure, this person has an infection? So AI orders the medication 2 hours earlier than a human being would recognize it. So yes, it's going to get more technical, but if it reaches the end state that I think Segi and I would love to see, doctors and clinicians, nurses, PAs, NPs, they're just spending time with you as the patient. All that other stuff is what, people like Seki and I are making sure is running smoothly in the background.
So doctors now will be giving patients more quality time, possibly.
That's the hope.
Certainly one of the goals.
Yeah.
Okay, so thank you so much. So Dean Hill, in our closing minutes we have here on the show, thank you so much for taking your time to join us in the radio show today. Can you share with our listening audience your vision, and thank you for being a visionary and allowing these opportunities to be explored in your school to enhance the overall skill sets of our students. But is there anything you wish to share with our listening audience in regards to your visions for Seidenberg moving forward?
Yeah, thank you, Pauline. And obviously, we're very, very proud of our school and the support that we get both from Pace University and from the broader Westchester community. We could not do the kinds of things that we do without that university and community partnership. But we are charged with developing the very best software engineers, data scientists, cybersecurity defenders, project managers, software engineers that we possibly can, because the work they are being asked to do when they graduate is incredibly important. They are developing software to land airplanes. They are developing the cyber defenses that keep local government and businesses safe and keep hackers and other ne'er-do-wells out of your computer systems. They are developing the software that allows us to have this conversation today and to work at a distance and to work more effectively in person. And so, it's a huge responsibility to adequately prepare young people for these kinds of high-pressure jobs. And again, we are sending folks to Washington, D.C. to work for the FBI and the CIA and the NSA, and we are sending people into White Plains Hospital, and we are sending people into high-pressure cooker jobs where fast access to accurate data is incredibly important. And so we are going to continue to work with our partners to understand what the emerging needs are in industry. We are going to work with our faculty to understand where the science is leading us. And we're going to put those things together and create the very best environment to educate students and prepare them that we possibly can.
Should people be nervous that there won't be a lot of jobs because the robots are going to take over?
Well, the wonderful thing, Paul, about that is that with each technological advance, 3 new jobs are created. And, there's been a lot of concern about this incredible advance in artificial intelligence, at least on the words in terms of collating words and global expertise. But what we're finding is this is only going to heighten the demand. So I have been in this business long enough to have seen many cycles where people predicted that the technology was going to replace workers. And what we have seen at every iteration is that the technology just creates more demand for workers and new jobs that we haven't even thought of yet. And that's Dr. Mosley's responsibility, is to figure out what those emerging jobs will be and to develop courses that will prepare students for those emerging jobs in fields that we haven't even thought of yet.
That is great. I wanted to ask you a question about White Plains Hospital. And does White Plains Hospital, are you ahead of the other regional hospitals, or are all hospitals in this area doing pretty much the same thing? And this is an opportunity for you to get a salary increase from White Plains Hospital if you answer it correctly.
I was going to say, Paul, I think I'm legally obligated to say yes. No, no, I appreciate the question. So I think it's an open secret that White Plains Hospital really strives to sort of punch above its weight class. We're a 300-bed facility that maybe is of the size and footprint of a community hospital, but we're really have the aspirations of becoming a metropolitan, cosmopolitan, whatever the right terminology is, first-tier hospital. Our under our excuse me, CEO and president, the organization has grown tremendously over the last 10 years. Physicians have moved from voluntary status to employed by leaps and bounds. There's practices all over the place. I believe it's 28 different practices across 42 locations. We're in the process of building a large space in the Lord and Taylor space in Eastchester, which is going to become a flagship ambulatory site serving multiple different service lines, so that, again, only your most acute folks are coming up the road to White Plains, because a lot of their monitoring and a lot of really skilled subspecialists will be right there next to their Nike shop and their Starbucks. So it should avert that. But I guess that was the long answer to say, yes, I think we're very unique. I don't think regional hospitals are thinking about or doing any of the stuff we have. I doubt local competitors have a Jonathan Segi on their payroll. I'm kind of surprised. I never thought I'd see a data scientist in a hospital, let alone multiple, because we have a few, and yet here we are. So no, we're definitely very, very unique. Or, as the motto says, we're exceptional every day.
That is great. You have a final question?
No, just your vision. Your vision, I'll ask you the same question I asked Dean Hill. Your vision for the hospital, where do you see it going or growing in 5 to 10 years? And again, thank you for the service that White Plains serves our community. We really appreciate you, especially in the pandemic. It was a tremendous asset to the community, helping families and communities and just our community get through this pandemic. So thank you for your service.
Of course. I think on the vision, any sort of hospital's vision is always to give people the best care you possibly can and have the best experience possible while you're in care. So I think that's going to look like a lot of different things for us, but one of them is that continuum of care. We're talking about moving the care outside of just the hospital space. So I think that's going to look like a lot of different innovations over the next few years. But
great. We're ran out of time, but thank you very much for your service, and really great show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us. It was great.
Thank you.
And thank you, Dean Hill. Everyone have a wonderful weekend.
And now I feel that the town of Greenburgh has to get into the 21st century.
Yes.
So with your help,
We're going to get there.
We'll get there.
With Pace's help, absolutely.
Great. Thank you. I'm Paul Feiner, Greenburgh Town Supervisor.